He's currently now president of Tillirson Consulting Group and president of the board of Pathways to Healing. So give it up for Sims. T for the Tillirson.
Thank you, bro. We'll do that. I got the clicker. We're good. You got the fonts to come through. I appreciate it. What's up, y'all? I'm Sims. As you can tell, this is going to be wildly informal. We talked a little bit about my experience here, but I want to tell you guys that I'm here to tell you my story as somebody that lives with complex PTSD, is a survivor of sexual abuse, and has gotten clean from narcotics. I also have a little experience in the arena, been in the employee benefits business for a decade, have been the chief revenue officer of a mental health provider, and I also serve on the board of a rape crisis center as the president. So hear a lot about bad things that happen around us and the things that impact all of us and our mental health as we grow up. So you will see me make mention of this idea of someone else's war. I think it's easy for us to think of mental health as a statistic, right? 60% of employees struggle with mental health on a day-to-day basis, and that means 35% lower productivity and 4 times the number of days missed to their counterparts who do not struggle. And it's easy to dilute those into statistics. But every statistic is a story, and there is no such thing as someone else's war, especially with mental health. It is for all of us to fight. So I'm going to talk to you about my story, talk to you about the role of a great DPC doc in helping me get pharmaceutical free, and then talk to you about why EAPs suck and why we're missing the mark when it comes to mental health care. So let's get started. There we go. So I mentioned that 2/3, 3/4 of employees say that they struggle with mental health in some way. But I'm going to show you why we're not statistics. So story starts in this teeny tiny little small town called Clinton, South Carolina. We're in 2012. I'm there because I've been kicked out of Georgia Tech not once, but twice for playing bar bands and dealing drugs and just having a whole lot of fun. So I'm at Presbyterian College, turning my life around, getting ready to graduate, and I begin to have flashbacks to memories that I really don't remember surfacing ever at any point in my life. And there are horrific memories about being abused by one of my family members when I was a young kid, between the ages of 8 and 13. And so I'm sitting in my 04 Toyota Tacoma outside of my dorm, talking to my girlfriend at the time, boo-hooing, because I can't get control of these feelings. And so what did I do? I got off the phone, I went to therapy and got it sorted, right? Absolutely not. I called my drug dealer, got an 8-ball of blow, got a case of beer, called my buddy, said, we're skipping class, we're getting fucked up, we're gonna have a good time. And that is how I dealt with my problems for a very, very long time. So before I finish the story and tell you how I went from there to a successful multi-6-figure business owner with 2 beautiful kids and a great wife, I gotta tell you how I got there. So let's go back. Sandersville, Georgia, speed trap town, 70 miles from the interstate in every direction. It's where I grew up. Wasn't a whole lot to do there, but my parents gave me a good life. Weren't rich, but we were middle class. I never wanted for a meal. Sometimes I wanted a new 4-wheeler like some of my buddies got, and I didn't get that, and that's okay. But I lived a really normal life. I played sports, lettered in 3 in high school, dated pretty girls, made good grades, got full scholarships to college, played a lot of instruments, was active in church, did everything. All-American kid, picture perfect life, right? But in the background, I'm experiencing this abuse from one of my family members. I obviously don't talk about it when I'm this age because I'm afraid. And then it's a babysitter. And very quickly, I start acting out. 13 years old, first time I ever got drunk, and I loved it. I wanted to do it as much as I could. Started to experiment with drugs, and was just very difficult for my poor parents to deal with. Because here they are thinking, well, Sims has got it all. He's got it made. He's doing great. Why is he acting out? Why is he using drugs? Why is he sneaking out of the house? Why is he just being generally a big pain in the ass for us? And we all know the answer now, but it took quite a bit of time and them forcing me into talk therapy, which was a good thing, although I got my privileges for talk therapy revoked pretty quickly because it was an hour away and I could get in a lot of trouble if I put an hour between me and my parents. So my first interactions with the mental health care system started at about the age of 15, therapy and pills. And I was on therapy and pills until about 9 months ago, but we'll get back to that in a moment. The thing that I want to reinforce for you guys is that my complex PTSD has a root, right? It's abuse. But people can look like me, be successful, they can look like you, and they can struggle with these things even without some huge trigger event. So I want us to be all cognizant of that. All right, I'm going to jump you back 10 years ago, Columbia, South Carolina, 2014. I have just started working in the benefits business at Unum Group. I have a really good gig because I can do coke in the bathroom, and I have this chronic back condition from working agriculture before I got into insurance. So I happen to have a prescription for 120 Vicodin a month and 30 Flexeril a month as well. So every day coming to work, I wake up, have a little bump, eat a pill, and repeat that cycle. And I was good enough at my job to continue doing that. And I didn't really intend to stop. Until one day, my mother-in-law, who'd been a nurse for 40 years, confronted me in her house and said, "Sims, every time you come out of my guest bathroom, your eyes are glassy. What are you taking?" I said, "Well, Melissa, I'm taking Vicodin. I'm prescribed 120 a month. I'm only taking what the doctor gives me. I have a horrible back injury, and I need it." And she didn't believe that, and thank goodness. And that was a catalyst for me to begin to get off of that drug, which is pretty rough to get off of if you've never done it. Hope none of you ever have to. So when that happened, I started drinking more, started doing more blow to kind of compensate. And it wasn't until I was in the middle of a venue like this for one of the wealthiest families in the state of South Carolina, doing key bumps out of a baggie in the middle of the dance floor, that my wife thought to put her foot down. And she said, "Sims, if you don't quit this, I'm going to leave you." And again, all right, I'm going to detox from cocaine. I'm completely narcotics free. So I start drinking a lot more. I'm now a traveling salesman for Unum Group, which means ton of entertainment, always drinking, always out partying, right? And I continue that pattern until October 25th, 2018, so almost 7 years ago. You guys heard my bio, I'm a musician. I was playing a gig in the North Georgia mountains, and after about 7 or 8 beers, lights went out. I lost a lot of time, came back to 3 a.m., sitting in my running truck, beer in the cup holder, smoking a cigarette next to Lake Lanier. No clue how I got there. And thankfully, I didn't have to go farther down bottom. And that was the day that I said, I'm not going to drink anymore. And I thankfully haven't had a drink since. But thank you guys. That's where my healing journey really started, without something to numb the pain. So I dove headfirst back into therapy, was really good about my medications, dropped about 70 pounds from this current weight because I got addicted to Orange Theory and went 2 or 3 times a day, which happens to us addicts from time to time. But I really started putting in the work, and I started to get better, but not really better. Just numb enough that I didn't want to do a bunch of drugs or worse, right? And I continued to think that there must be some better way for me. So I continued this pattern, continued to do this work, continued to go to therapy, take my pills, be a good boy, do the things I was supposed to do. And my first son was born almost 4 years ago. I really, really wanted to get off antidepressants, and I couldn't. I tried a couple of times, and I'll talk to you about the role my DPC played in helping me eventually do that. But I went through this intense back and forth, right, where I try to get off these medications. I have suicidal ideation as a part of my CPTSD, and that just ran rampant, titrating through these medicines up and down, right? All came to a head a few years ago. My little brother is getting married in Asheville, North Carolina, and my second son is now 6 weeks old. I am not sleeping. My wife is recovering from a C-section. And I am struggling. Suicidal ideation out of control, so much so that I planned my own suicide for the night of my brother's wedding. And the only thing that saved me was that I came home and my now 4-year-old was sick as a dog. And I stayed up all night with him and then drove him to Columbia the next day to receive treatment, and just kind of stopped thinking about it. But this was the reality for me this far into my recovery. And it wasn't until I met a DPC that I was able to really, really turn the tide for myself. So, you guys probably know the answer to this by now. A DPC physician helped me get off pharmaceuticals. That is true. So I saw a big box doctor for a long time. First time I tried to get off antidepressants, she says, Sims, I don't recommend that. If you're tired, I can prescribe you Vyvanse to keep you awake. Great. So I say no, try to get off antidepressants. Debilitating depression is too much for me. Go back on antidepressants. Go on Vyvanse to keep me awake. Repeat this cycle a few times until I finally meet my DPC, Dr. Victoria of Victory Family Medicine down in South Carolina. And when I got to her, I said, Victoria, the most important thing to me in my life is that I can be pharmaceutical free. I said, I know there are no approved methods to getting off of antidepressants. There are not. But I want to try. And she said, Sims, if that's what you want, you write a plan to get off these drugs. If it's sound, I'll sign off on it, and we'll keep going. And that was 9-10 months ago that I have been fully pharmaceutical free. I still go to talk therapy because it's helpful for me. But what I've seen is a significant decrease in my suicidal ideation. I have a lot more energy. I'm a lot more present with my kids. And overall, I'm a lot happier to be here. And I never would have gotten here without the support of a medical professional to back me up along the way. Because if my big box doctor had had her way, it wasn't her fault, right? She had 7 minutes to treat me every time she saw me. If she had had her way, I'd be on every damn drug in the book, and I'd still be struggling like you wouldn't believe. So, now that I've scarred you guys enough, I want to get into the meat of, now that we're thinking about this the right way, about people who struggle, the people that work with us. What are we doing about it now? Does it make a difference? Is there something that we can do next? So, does anybody know what the average EAP utilization is according to SHRM? So I'm here. I heard some C's. Anybody else? A, B, and C. All right. 3 to 5%. And for a long time, the conversation has been that this is an engagement problem. If we throw an enrollment firm in there, a communications firm in there, they'll drive that utilization right up. Unfortunately, that is not the case because EAPs are designed for low utilization. Low price point, many of them are included in group term life or LTD policies for pennies. So they're designed for low utilization. But what that means, how do they control that utilization? They only allow people to call through a phone number for triage instead of allowing text appointments, email appointments, right? They have incredibly long wait times to see their therapist. I think the average right now, if one of you wanted to go see a therapist, you would wait 50 days. It's going to do you a lot of good if you're in crisis, right? And then the other thing is that EAPs oftentimes overstate or misstate their covered providers. May not have many. Something that we saw when I was working with the mental health providers, that more often than not, the calls we would get were from EAP providers who had no access to mental health clinicians and needed us. So, with this and a few other stats I'm going to give you, we're going to see kind of the current state of the union. So 2 other stats that I want to call to your attention. 80% of people who take antidepressants do not experience major improvements. 60% of people who use talk therapy as a solution do not see any major improvements. And then one last stat I'll call to your attention, because I think it's important, is that not everyone who needs mental health assistance needs the kind of help I need, right? I need clinical help, right? But only 25% of employees fall into that bucket. 35% fall into the bucket of needing subclinical help. And the remaining 40% don't need clinical help at all. If they've got stress, there's a stressor they can point to. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's legal. But when we think about that breakdown and the fact that our only solution is to throw an EAP on top of the problem, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that we're not moving the needle for employees. So, another stat. There are alternative treatments in mental health that are hot button to some, not to others. Psychedelics are one of them. So I'm going to give you a stat brought to us by a company called Inthia, who was kind of the first mover in the psychedelic-assisted therapy space. They primarily focus on ketamine-assisted therapy. 89% of the folks they treat with ketamine with the assisted therapy component see significant changes in their mental health in under 90 days. It's pretty incredible. But a lot of treatments like that are demonized by a lot of us, right? I myself take psilocybin, magic mushrooms, in microdoses to cope with my PTSD very successfully. Not legal across the US, right? And this ketamine-assisted therapy is another one that it is not an ongoing treatment. It is an episodic treatment. People don't have to do this forever. So that shouldn't surprise us that insurers, major health systems haven't grabbed onto this stuff yet. But there are alternatives. And just like there are alternatives to the therapy itself, there are solutions for access. And I wanted to provide a few of those to you as well. So there's a company called Therify that matches employers to in-network therapists in under 24 hours. LB Health, where I used to be the chief revenue executive, is a virtual mental health platform licensed in all 50 states. You can call them today and see a therapist tomorrow. And then the last is a company called Shoulder. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's not unlike another company called Listeners on Call out of Texas. It is a subclinical solution where my buddy Ben over here is a shoulder. I might call him and tell him I'm having a tough time, and he listens to me, and that's enough for me. And that's enough for 35% of employee populations as well. The problem is taking those solutions and pushing employers and brokers and anybody who has a seat at the decision-making table to say, this does not cut it. We should not be proud of this. We can have an EAP, but we need to do a lot more. So I'm running really fast through this. But the last thing that I want to talk to you about before we get to questions is what we can do as leaders without spending any money, without bringing on a new vendor, to create a positive culture of mental health in our workplace. So 3 really easy ideas. Talk openly about mental health. When I was in the startup space, one of my favorite things to do, I kept my entire calendar public for all of my employees, put my Friday afternoon therapy appointment on there so that I could show my employees, hey, I go to therapy, I take my time off, I do what I need to do to take care of myself, and it's okay for you to do that too. Avoiding minimizing mental health conditions. So I don't like the word police a whole lot, but we throw around terms like OCD and depression and any major clinical disorder flippantly. And it's not a good thing. It signals to the people around us that we don't give a shit. And that's not what we want to do. And then the last is put on your own oxygen mask first. So kind of in line with putting my therapy appointments on my calendar, if we want our workplace to take mental health seriously, we have to show the people around us that we're taking our own mental health seriously by getting enough sleep and going to the gym and eating well and standing in the sunshine and not freaking out when we spill a whole cup of water on the table. So with that, thank you guys for giving me a chance to share my story and take it on through to how we can be better stewards of mental health for all the people around us. Ben's going to bring up some chairs. We'll take some questions. One more time, I am not a clinician. I'm just a guy with a bunch of tattoos and a microphone.
I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Sims, because the courage and the bravery to bear all to a group of perfect strangers up in the Midwest and share things as vulnerably as you have is true courage, and it's really admirable, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So this is a topic that I was actually particularly excited about, just because it doesn't get a whole lot of real rep in these types of conventions. And I think the state of the world that we're in, the state of this country, the political environment, the siloing, it's even more important that we actually discuss these things and bring them up. So first question here, okay, and this is very fitting. What do you recommend organizations do instead of an EAP?
Yeah, so I think that, like LB Health that I mentioned, this is not an endorsement for them because there are a lot of companies like this. LB Health does direct contracts with employers. It's their preferred method. They don't want to go through insurance if they don't have to. That is certainly a larger expense than your EAP is going to be. And let me tell you, any worthwhile solution you bring in-house is going to be more expensive than your EAP. It just is. But I would explore partnerships with, if you're a local employer, find a mental health practice and see if they'll do a direct contract. My bet is that they will. And you can pay utilization-only pricing typically. So not a big, heavy hit, but it also signals to your employees that you care more than a 25-cent PEPM might say you do. And then the other thing that I think really can move the needle is middle management training, not on how to handle somebody when they're in crisis, but just on what mental health conditions look like, and then on all of the benefits that you have in your package that can be useful to those folks. Because I got to tell you, one of the most useless things that could have happened to me in a moment of crisis would have been if my HR lead had said, well, Sims, here's this 800 number. They'll take care of you. Good luck.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I love this question. We're getting to the heart of the stakeholders and how do the stakeholders all work together. We already talked about the stakeholders. We got employers, we got providers, we have brokers. This question speaks to that. What is the role of the broker advisor consultant, right, to support the mental health offerings?
I think the role is significant, right? If we want to manage risk, people with mental health conditions have 35% more absenteeism. And when they're at work, they're not thinking about work. They're thinking about their stressor, their trigger event, right? So if we really care about cost containment, that should be a major focus area. Maybe it's not going to be up there with MSK, cancer, and diabetes, but got to be in top 5 or top 10.
Yeah, a lot of claim reports I see have mental health, inpatient mental health, drug and rehab services.
Well, and those turn into LTD claims.
Right.
Those are big.
Yeah. I think something that I want to add is I think similar to how the industry functions now, when we relegate the choices and the EAP system to the carriers for them to define how it should look and how it should work, all of a sudden we're getting into trouble, right? Because now they're dictating the terms. And that's the whole point of being able to self-fund, is having the control, having the insight, having the transparency to make those calls yourself, right? And so that just reminded me that, yeah, I mean, they provide this. Well, what does that mean? Who's they? What do the carrier do? What do they, what do they care about? And what is their alignment? All right. This is one more on your personal journey, if you're okay speaking a little bit more to it. Can you speak a bit more about how your DPC helped you on your journey to get off pharmaceuticals?
Yeah.
I know you mentioned the plan, and you showed your doctor, Victoria, the plan, and she signed off on it. She helped you with that. Tactically, what did that look like in that process?
So the first piece, it cannot be overstated, is just her willingness to support what is considered an alternative route for treatment. Because, and there may be mental health clinicians in this room that will debate me, and I would love an opportunity to learn if I'm incorrect here. But there was a shift at some point in the last 10 or 20 years when we think about how we use antidepressants. They're not used for episodic care. They are meant to be lifelong solutions. At least in my mind, that's why there are no approved methods to get off of them. So that's step one. Step two is building the plan and having her feedback. So I was on Cymbalta, which is the most addictive antidepressant on the market. And let me tell you, after getting off booze, cocaine, and Vicodin, it was the hardest thing I've ever come off in my life. Wow. But they're capsules with beads inside them. And you get down to the lowest doses, like 20 milligrams, but you can't go from 20 to 0. Even when you're 250 pounds, you can't. So you have to make a plan to literally pick beads out of the pills. Wow. And so that was part of what I had to get her help with, is in those, I knew how to go from 120 to 20, right? But it was those little bits at the end. And then the most important thing to me at the end of the day was that I had direct text access to her every day. And she reached out to me probably every other day for 12 weeks until I finished tapering all the way off of those, to make sure that I was okay, because getting off of antidepressants can cause suicidal ideation, suicidal tendencies. It can be very dangerous. And so her willingness to support through the whole journey and to be open to my use, like my microdosing of psilocybin, for instance, because she's willing to read studies and look at what's actually working rather than just follow the recommendation of somebody else.
What I heard from that answer, I loved about what got me onto direct primary care in the first place, which is access. Just being able to access a clinical provider when I need them, right? And that's so huge, because then you in turn saw, because she's getting paid differently, she's able to practice medicine differently, and she's able to align with you. And not that other providers in the health systems don't care. Obviously they care, majority of them went to help people, but they're in an environment that pressures the alternative, right? The revenue generation versus my alignment is to, care for you. And so that's a beautiful relationship. That
certainly the incentive model matters. My doctor, even if she doesn't care about me, she doesn't want me texting her every day. She wants me to be well enough that I'm not. And so she works to do that, not through just prescription drugs, but through holistic means.
By caring.
It's been great for me. Yeah.
By caring. Yeah. We just care. All right, this is a twofer. So I'm going to read two, but I believe they relate. So what kind of plan design changes can a self-funded plan, so we're talking about a plan sponsor, make that would support total mental health, okay? And where's the other one? What do you wish you saw health plans doing as it relates to this? So
Yeah.
kind of same size of the same question, same
Yeah.
coin.
First part of the question, I'm going to be honest, I don't have all the answers there. I've been a licensed broker for a long time, but I was just a VB broker. I don't build health plans. I have really enjoyed the seeing direct contracts happen in this space. And also, like, LB has a health plan, a level funded health plan out of North Carolina. They're the sole mental health provider, and it just sends a different message, right? So I think that's part of it. And then what was part two?
If you could wave your wand and
Yeah.
make one change to the plan when it goes to mental health, what it would be? I think I might know your answer. It's make it accessible and free for employees and give them actual access, because
Yeah.
that's been a struggle for a lot of employees.
Yeah, access is the most important piece for sure, but so is cost. There are a lot of us in this room. I'm one of them. If I have to spend $150 for an hour to see my therapist, it doesn't bother me. It's not going to hurt me. There are a lot of people that cannot afford that. There are a lot of people that can't afford $50 to see their therapist. And we got to account for everybody. Because at the end of the day, a person like me, if I don't have mental health support through an employer, I can pay for my own. Yeah. But folks without that level of disposable income don't have those options. So yeah, access, cost.
100%. Okay, I like some questions that we're getting from HR right now. These are all similar questions. So if an employee is struggling at work for mental health or dependency, how can HR help? Another one is what can they do to reduce the stigma around the workplace mental health?
Yeah. So I think the first is understanding every resource you have at your disposal for your employees, making those easy access, and again, communicating that down through middle management, because it's unlikely that every employee struggling is going to call their head of HR to say, can you help me get help? But the frontline manager, the middle manager, may see signs of absenteeism or distance, preoccupation, whatever it may be. And I think it's just, again, it's not me going to Ben if he's my employee and saying, hey, you look like you have depression, bro. Like, let's get you some help. But it's just having personal relationships and understanding what's going on in people's lives. And you can dissect some of that. Forgot the last part.
Me too. Next question.
There we go. Reducing the stigma.
There we go.
Reducing the stigma, we have to talk about it. Like, I wish I could have taken a picture of y'all's faces when I was talking about my story. Like, y'all were so uncomfortable and I get it.
We're in Wisconsin, Sims. This is where we are.
The stories I'm telling elicit a visceral reaction. But if that's the kind of energy that you put out when people talk about mental health, they're not going to talk about it.
Oh, wow. Frickin' A. Point taken. All right. A couple of good ones here. Well, okay, first of all, so there's a person that asked, you've used your LinkedIn, Sims, Tillirson, has used your LinkedIn to really help people see you, see actual Sims, not just, we're taking selfies at this conference and business is great and we're all great. No, you actually, basically what he told you today, he's putting out there, to everybody. And I love the follow-up to this. Any advice for people trying to break through their own echo chamber? What a great question.
That is a really great question. So the first is just like prioritize meeting new people, even if it's just on LinkedIn. I look at a lot of my second and third degree connections just to make connections there. But I think the other thing is, when we're really radically authentic, and please understand, I am not telling you guys to get on LinkedIn and share the shit I share. But when we can be really authentic and aligned in who we are and how we present ourselves, really good things happen for us. We become memorable enough that 50% of people hate us. Like not everyone is a fan of me, but the other 50% become raving fans, and not of me as a creator, but of me as a person. And so they become friends, they become clients, they become colleagues, and it's all about being willing to take off the mask and say, hey, I know I'm going to alienate some people by being my real self. I know that I'm going to miss out on some business I could have gotten with a person I probably would have hated working with if I'm myself. But on the other side, I am going to create a tight-knit community of people who love me and care about me and want to see me win.
Love it. All right, so this is a good question about point solutions. So there's obviously a lot of point solutions out there. I'm going to make it a two-for question again. What are your thoughts on, mental health vendor point solutions? And I think with the genesis of AI, I don't know how much you guys have been following along, but it's crazy, crazy world out there. And especially because of healthcare being a 4.5, pretty close to a $5 trillion industry, they're going to start getting into this market like crazy, right? So the point solutions aren't going to slow down, and there's going to be more than we can handle. What are your thoughts on the mental health vendor point solutions? And really, a follow-up to that is most people here have an EAP that they're able to access. Okay, so that being said, maybe they're not operating in the preferred environment or with preferred incentives. Is there something we can do to strengthen the EAP, wrap around it, and support it so that it actually operates the way it should? So kind of two questions, same
that's
direction.
a great question. Some of the major players in the mental health point solution space are moving the needle in the right direction, but I don't think we've gone far enough. Most of them are like EAPs on roids. That said, I find a lot of these solutions make kind of baseless ROI claims. And that's one of the first things that I would look at if I were going to evaluate one of these solutions is I would want a third-party validated ROI study on a population similar to my own to understand what I'm actually paying for. Because you can get into a position with, I won't name any of the big ones, but you probably know who I'm talking about. They all have health at the end and one word before them. They can get into a position where they're just like your EAP. From a utilization perspective.
Collecting money and not really seeing much engagement or change or anything.
Yeah. And I think on the EAP side, I have never seen this done. My assumption is that it could be done with a standalone EAP vendor that's not part of your health plan offering or part of your UNUM GTL policy, is just realigning the incentive structure, because that's the problem. It's not that they don't want to provide care to people, it's that they've kept the price point low enough that they have to. So if you can partner with an independent EAP and align pricing towards higher utilization metrics or utilization-only pricing, I think that probably has some legs. And then the other would be that if you can stack a non-clinical solution on top of an EAP, you're going to see some lift.
Non-clinical?
Subclinical, rather, like shoulder, listeners on call.
Awesome. All right. I will do one more question here, and I'm going to chime in on this because it gets to the heart of what we're trying to do here, get all the stakeholders pushed in the right direction. Is there a way to find high quality and low cost inpatient treatment facility when more extensive treatment is needed? Can a DPC assist with this? And I think this speaks to, right, a term that we use that is not a great term because it takes away the humanity of people is high-cost claimant. Do you guys have a high-cost claimant on your plan, right? And what is a high-cost claimant? It's a person, a human person, dealing with some significant amount of crap in their life or their dependents, their family member's life that is costing a lot of money but creating a vast amount of trauma. And so when you see, even on the medical side, not the mental health side, somebody dealing with cancer or heart issues or whatever, they're bounced around and ping-ponged around the system like crazy, right? And they don't know where to turn, they don't know where to go, they're hitting their max out of pocket every year. And mental health is very similar to that because inpatient, usually through a hospital, right? And then clinical setting for outpatient mental health is maybe not it could be through an independent, or it could be through a different network, or it could be through a contract or something like that. How do we tie that all in together? Along with the use of DPC, how do we talk about it? It's complex, and so obviously we're not going to solve it here. But what is your take on driving that to give people the best care they can?
Yeah, my take is that you need a strong care navigation solution, and it doesn't have to be Quantum or Healthy or Accolade or Alight. Your care navigation solution can be your DPC, but we as employees can't be the people making these decisions. If I'm looking for an inpatient for myself or for my wife, I'm probably not going to be thinking about, let me find the highest quality, lowest cost provider. I'm probably going to be thinking about, where can I get a bed right now, right? So we need advocates who can work with us in times of crisis to push us to the right places. So I think a navigation mechanism is the solve. DPC's +1, right? Over regular navigation.
Absolutely. Okay. That's all the time we have for questions. Give it up for Sims one more time, please.
Thank you, guys.